Hey everyone, this is Nick. Welcome back to another duality repair video. Tonight I'm going to be looking at this B&W CCM663 speaker. It's a ceiling mount speaker and it's pretty cool looking. So I'll show you around just for a second. It's pretty neat looking. I like that blue. Very nice looking. Looks like Kevlar blue. So this is a ceiling mount speaker. Mounts into this bracket here. So you mount this bracket into the ceiling. You have your input connections right here that lead to this 4-pin connector, which leads to the 4-pin connector on this side. That leads to this 4-pin connector here on the speaker, which leads to this board. Goes through right here. This goes to an equalizer switch, so you can set your equalizer positions, and then goes across this board, and then finally ends up here on this panel where part of it goes to the tweeter, and then the other part goes to the voice coil. So pretty nice, little compact speaker, really solid. This thing is probably 10 or 15 pounds. So story with this is I got it from a customer yesterday, dropped it off. He told me that he bought it from the original owner for very cheap because the original owner said it didn't work right out of the box. So I've never worked on a speaker before, but I think I've already figured out what's wrong with this. So take a look at the board here, and right there. So this was not as apparent as it is right now. It was pretty well flat. You know, they were pretty well mated together. But I saw a crack, so I kind of pulled on it, and so I pulled it down just to verify, and it's very badly cracked, as you can see. There's also another crack over here. It's very difficult to see on camera. I'm going to take the board out, and you'll be able to see it then. But there's a crack over here, so what I think happened is the original owner either dropped it or set it down, you know, during installation, and set it on this end. All you got to do is set it down like this. You can't really see it, but if I set it down like there, you got 10 to 20 pounds of force just setting it down. If you were to drop it at all, this is absolutely going to break. This is pretty flimsy PCB material. So that's what I think happened. We're definitely going to have some inconsistent or missing traces here and inconsistent connections. So that's definitely going to be, I'm going to guess, our only problem. I took a good look around. Everything looks to be solid. On the speaker, I know you can't see all the details. The voice coil isn't shorted out or anything. Everything looks to be in good working condition physically. I don't see anything else wrong with this. So next I'm going to remove this board so we can take a closer look. The board is out of the unit, so let's take a closer look. So again, this first crack is very apparent. If we flip it around, try and get you in the right light here. There, now you can see the traces. You can see how even the traces are bending. So we're going to have an intermittent connection. Okay, and so again, this is our input here on the left, our equalizer channels here. And so the major break is on the equalizer channels. But our signal is, you know, it's definitely going to be compromised with this broken board here. So let me show you the other crack right there. Well, you can get a pretty good glimpse of it. So can't see it from the top very well. So it looks like, if you can see it, that crack is creeping up to that trace right there. So I'm going to guess that trace is compromised as well. So really what I'm going to need to do is draw up just a very simple schematic. Obviously it's going to be simple, there's not much to this. But just draw it up the best I can, trace it out with a multimeter, draw up a schematic so that I can, basically I'm gonna bypass this whole connection right here. I'm gonna have to desolder all of these pins and make direct connections to their final locations, wherever they happen to be. And then I'll probably have to do the same with that trace, so that's going to be one of these equalizer pins as well, I believe, to wherever that's going. The output of this filter here, this coil here. So next I will drop a quick schematic, at least of this front end here, anything that shows a compromised trace, so that I can use that as a guide for when I kind of rewire this thing. So I'll drop a schematic. Alright, so after examining the board a little more closely, I realize I don't need to worry about these input pins right down here. None of these have any compromised traces whatsoever. The other thing I did notice as well, some of you might have understood before I did, but these little lines in here, I was under the assumption that these were the traces, but these are actually the separations between these traces. So the traces are these very wide areas here. These are all the traces. That makes a lot more sense since the traces don't actually go through any of the connections. It's these wide open areas that are actually the actual traces. So it took me a few minutes to figure that one out. But anyway, so I drew up this quick diagram here. Very, very easy. If it'll focus, there we go. So on the left, I have the 4 equalizer pins labeled SBAC, SBAC, and then I color, I put their color as well. So white, black, yellow, red, and then I put the pin or pins that they trace to, and luckily each of them only traces to one pin. So the S pin, or the white wire, goes to WF plus. So this white wire here, if you follow the trace, it goes along the top of the board all the way across the board down to this pin on the left here. If you flip it over, WF plus. So that's the woofer, the plus side of the woofer. Okay. Black, focus. Black goes to L3. So I called it L for the inductor. They have an L labeled on there as well. Can't see it. And then 3 for the pin. So if you follow black, that's this pin here. Follow that trace up and around. Actually, it only goes to right there. Very easy. So flip that around. Pin 3 of the inductor. And then the same with the other 2. So A, which is the yellow wire, leads to pin 4 of this same inductor. So pin 4 is over here. And then the red wire, or C, leads to pin 2 of the inductor. So the red wire C leads to pin 2 right there. Okay? So all I'm going to do, this board is already broken, so I'm going to have to remove this chunk of the board, and I'll probably desolder all 4 of these, and I will just bridge these with new wire to their associated pins. So one here, and then here and here. I'll bridge those, and I'll come back when it's all done. We'll take a look at it, and then I'll use the meter to make sure that my traces are solid and that I have good connection between each pins. And then we'll reinstall it into the speaker and we'll test it out, make sure this thing works. I'll be right back. Alright, before I remount the board, I'll just show you really quick what I did. So first thing I did was desolder the connections here, and I had kind of cut this part of the board out to clean it up. It's about as clean as I can get it. And so now I've joined each of the 4 wires from the equalizer to 4 new wires, and then applied some heat shrink. All I did was I twisted them together, soldered them together, and then added the heat shrink, so that these are pretty well connected right now. I feel pretty confident with those. And then of course I soldered each of the wires to their respective pins, what I talked about in the previous segment. So these 4 pins here. So I feel pretty confident about these connections. The lengths are good. As far as everything's gonna reach, I'll be able to install it. The last thing I really have to do before I'm ready to kind of set this thing up permanently is to clean the wires up a little bit. It's a little wire management. So I'll get probably 2 zip ties. I'll zip tie these together here at this point, clean that up, and then I'll clean this up a little bit too, kind of zip tie these together. And then I may need to do a final zip tie once I have the board installed here, just to maybe zip tie these to the post or something so that they're out of the way. They're not going to interfere with the speaker, and they're also not going to interfere with the mounting rack that I showed you earlier. So I'm going to get this installed just so I can test it. I want to see how it sounds, see if it works, or perhaps it doesn't. You know, we might have other issues. I may have screwed something up. You never know. So I'm going to install it, and we'll hook an amplifier up to it and see how it sounds. Alright, I mounted the board inside the speaker, and then I mounted the speaker inside the housing assembly, and then hooked up my speaker wire here from an amplifier, and then I have some royalty-free music hooked up to my amplifier via my computer. So I got quite the system going on here. It's the first time I'm going to give it a shot, so let's see if it makes any noise at all. Here we go. You can hear something. I'm going to turn it up. Oh boy. Sounds good. Very clean. Turn it up even more. That speaker is fixed. I love it. It's a win right there. Time to celebrate. Cheers. So I'm sure the owner would be very happy to know that this speaker is working perfectly. As I said, all I need to do is clean up the board a little bit, make sure the flux is cleaned up. I'll do a little cable management, make sure those cables are nice and tight, out of the way of the speaker, out of the way of the housing assembly, and this thing is done. Very exciting. I love it. So that's it for this one. I will see you on the next video. It won't be too long. Have a good one. Thanks for watching. Not bad for royalty free too, by the way, huh?